Okay, good evening, everyone. With deep gratitude and respect, I am honored to be learning and unlearning on the ancestral lands and unceded lands of the Musqueam, Squamish Okomayam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Welcome to VSB After the Bell Live. We are thrilled to have you join us for this important information session about navigating social media, AI, and online safety. My name is Jiana Chow, and I'll be your moderator this evening. This learning series, VSB After the Bell Live, is designed to give families direct access to educators and experts on topics that matter most to student learning and well-being. Tonight, we'll dive into how students are engaging with popular platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, Discord, and Instagram. We'll also discuss the rise of generative AI and look at tools like ChatGPT and Copilot. We'll then look at how to help young people stay safe and responsible in their digital interactions. We have a fantastic expert panel joining us to share insights and answer your questions today. A quick reminder, you can submit your questions through the Q&A feature at the top of the bar you'll see. It's right beside the three dots. Since the session will be public, we ask that you avoid sharing personal or sensitive information. We'll do our best to address as many questions as possible. The most common questions received will be answered at the end during the Q&A period. Some of you may have also submitted some questions beforehand, and those will be answered throughout tonight's presentation. So let's dive into it, and let's begin by meeting our panelists today. We have Jeff Spence, who is the District Principal of Learning and Information Technology. Jeff has been teaching physics, math, and STEM in Vancouver secondary schools since 1992. After earning his master's, he became an administrator and was posted to Vancouver Technical Secondary. Jeff was also involved in early learning, teaching at the Digital Immersion Mini School, and launched the John Oliver STEM program. For the last 5 years, Jeff has been working at the district, and he's been part of the Learning and Information Technology team. He's brought online learning during COVID using Teams, and we all are familiar with that. And now he's focusing on digital literacy. Jeff also leads how the district is going to be using AI and how it's going to impact us. We also have Christina Walker on the panel. She's a digital literacy mentor teacher. She's basically the teacher who teaches teachers. Christina has been teaching at the Vancouver School Board since 2012. She started as an elementary teacher, but is now focused on teaching digital arts, design, and technology. Christina holds a master's from UBC in Society, Culture, and Politics in Education. Christina was the recipient of the Aspirations in Computing Canada West Coast Educator in 2025 by the National Centre for Women and Information Technology. Christina is also a proud mom of 2 teenagers who are also attending VSB schools. So not only can she relate to being a parent in Vancouver, but she's also a strong advocate for equity in educational technology and education in general. Thank you so much, Jeff and Christina, for being here today. I'm going to hand it over and give it to Jeff.
Wow, thanks so much for that introduction. Let's get right started on the agenda. We kind of have broken this evening down into 3 pieces. What's going on in the world for kids with social media, AI, and online? What is the VSB doing? And then how can we work together with VSB and families? And so, Christina, what is digital literacy?
Okay, well, let's dig into this. Welcome to my world, raising 2 teenagers, but also helping support educators and students in learning this. So this is my world, digital literacy. What is it? Digital literacy is fundamentally the ability to effectively and responsibly use digital tools and technology. So this includes finding and evaluating information online, recognizing credible sources, using digital tools effectively. It involves being able to communicate responsibly on social media, protecting personal information, understanding the ethical implications of your actions online. It's really, really, really important for our kids to understand how, for example, media influences opinions, and to be aware of the cultural and social impacts of digital technology. And so by focusing in on these areas, we can really, really help children become fluent and responsible digital citizens.
Yeah, why digital literacy matters. Schools have spent a great time on literacy and numeracy, reading, writing, and math. It's apparent kids are engaging with devices more and more and online more and more, screen time, AI, cell phones. Many students are just self-taught and they're kids, so they make mistakes. This is part of learning. Many jobs are requiring digital literacy, and recent polling of job recruiters are saying that they are hiring specifically for AI skills. There was a pre-question from our online forum that read like this: how can the VSB formalize online responsibility of our teens' education? Well, the Ministry of Education has what's called the Digital Literacy Framework. And Jiana, you have a set of links from us. So if you could drop that into the Q&A, that would be awesome to share with parents. And so this framework was written in a way to be accessible to all classrooms, students, teachers across BC. And that is a wide variety of experiences. It is to be embedded within every class. Christina is working with teachers in Vancouver to engage students in this digital world. Just like families, every classroom is different. Let's look at some of the ways they're different. Christina?
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna go in depth into this, but really I want to stress the importance of each of these key areas in terms of why digital literacy matters. Of course, Jeff just pointed out some really important things, but again, we really have to work on developing those skills. So let's dig into the digital landscape of kids.
So what are our kids doing? My kids have graduated from high school, but through the years, the early years of cell phones, like all parents, we struggle with when should we give our kids a cell phone? And that's a question that each family can answer. What I can say just briefly, and we'll talk about it more, is that cell phones are not really needed in elementary schools. In fact, we have restrictions in place that cell phones are not used in K to 7. So we'll talk more about that. But let's look at some of the stats leading into the digital landscape of children.
Yeah, okay, so Gianna, in those links, there's 2 links that I'd like for you to share for families to be able to go through at their leisure. Media Smarts is a phenomenal Canadian-based organization, does a lot of research. If you can put that research link in there so that families can actually see some of the things that they're doing. And then there's also another Media Smarts link, the Helping Kids Get a Healthy Start with Phones, just so you can refer to it. So at the end of the presentation, Jeff and I have actually worked really hard with some of our team to build, to update the VSB website. And we have some parent resources that you can come back to and have a look at. And we'll kind of point them out, as we go along. But what I'd like to actually focus about right now is that, as you can see, there's some really important stats here for us to understand as educators and as family and parents and caregivers in our kids' lives, because we are collaborators in their education together, working together. So our goal ultimately is to explore how we can work together to raise digitally resilient kids. So you can see that stat right there. 77% of Canadian youth have their own smartphone. And statistically speaking, they receive these phones between the ages of 11 and 13. So again, like Jeff had mentioned, social connection really is what's at the heart of kids' use of the internet. And this is a really, really big challenge for those of us who didn't grow up in the digital age. And this shift, of course, when we're parenting, it comes with complications because we are not given raising kids in the 21st century handbook. So key areas where your kids are going to be existing online, they are using social media platforms, they are using gaming environments, chat spaces, and especially within the past few years, you're all aware, they're using generative AI. So moving on, let's start
So
with
what
that
do we
first
do?
category.
Yeah, what do we do, Christina? Social media, how do I engage with my child in social media? We need to be together on this. Students, parents, teachers, everybody, we really need to work together. So how do we do this? The use of social media for teenagers has become integral to their social networks. If they don't have their phone, they are extremely anxious. You've seen this. I've seen it with my own kids. As admin, though, I'd like to spotlight 4 apps that are kind of causing the most conflict in schools. And from the icons, you can see TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and that blue one is Discord. They're all kind of the same. We call them social media apps because they bring people together, but they're all a little bit different. They have nuances. So let's discuss just briefly each of these apps. But just before we do that, let's look at a little graphic. If you notice from YouTube, I can tell it's a confusing graphic and it's quite small, but the pink line is ages 9 to 11. And if you look at YouTube, so kids age 9 to 11, 50% have a YouTube account. Now, that's curious to me because I thought for YouTube you had to be 13 or older. And you can see that it increases with age, but all of the platforms have a segment of kids that are accessing social media at a younger and younger age. And this again comes from Media Smarts. All combined, 86% of youth age 9 to 11 already have social media accounts. Let's have a look at TikTok.
Yeah, so we're going to start us off. TikTok. This is a big one. I'm sure you are all very familiar with it. I'm not going to go into the details on this. Like I mentioned, we have parent resources that we pulled together, some really, really solid help for families, including things like parent guides, where if you want to actually understand more about some of these platforms, you can go in and have a look and see. And they even have things like helping as a parent in using these. So TikTok, this is this is a huge app. You can see on average, most people using it are logging about an hour every single day on this particular platform, which is a lot of time to be spending on there. It's a lot of fun. I will say I spend a decent amount of time on it. My kids give me a hard time. But I don't know, Jeff, did you want to talk about what this looks like in the classroom space, or I guess in the school space?
In the school space, like TikTok had such energy around it that kids just couldn't stop with it. And so actually we have blocked it. We have some concerns with the way that they're storing data, where they're storing data, how that is being handled. And actually, there's even more of a concern that maybe families weren't aware of. But TikTok is one of the few social media platforms that they openly say, no, we are keeping your face, we are keeping your voice. So they are keeping all this in their databases. And that's something to think about.
Definitely.
Let's look at Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. So Instagram across the board, out of all the apps, this is the biggest app, not just with kids, adults as well. We are all using this. You can see the amount of time that's being used. I'm sure you are all deeply familiar with it. I think the two things that I wanted to point out about this, because again, there's lots of really great things that are super fun about these. Like I was saying, I love TikTok. I do use Instagram as well. But there's two key things that I really wanted to point out that have shown themselves to be an issue with the use by children are algorithms in Instagram. They work really hard to really push forward and some potentially harmful trends and different challenges that are there. So you really have to be careful with the use of that, because what's popular and what's trending with kids will get pushed their way, and that's not necessarily the best content for kids. Also, the permanence of the content. So as an educator, as a teacher, I have spent years working with kids who are using technology. Again, I've used technology through my practice as a teacher regularly, but that digital footprint piece. And Instagram, you put anything on, any of these apps, you put it online, it's there permanently. So we have to really be thinking about how the things that we put online are affecting us in the long run. Jeff, did you want to add something to that?
That's really what we call your digital footprint, hey?
Yeah.
All of this permanence of information.
Mhm.
Facebook and Instagram, because Instagram was purchased by Facebook, they really have turned into my permanent photographic record. I don't have a shoebox full of printed out photos anymore. Now I have Facebook. And so I have, we have this personal use of these apps that many people are using, billions of people, but we also have the use in the classroom. So how do we come to terms with the balance between these two things? The permanence of the photos that kids are taking. There was an app, and we're going to talk about that next, Snapchat, where they thought that they could get rid of the permanence of the photographs being taken.
Mm-hmm. So Snapchat, we go from permanence to what people think are not permanent. So Snapchat, again, if you ever see your kids sitting on the couch with their phone and they're making faces like this at their phone, this is what they're on. They're sending snaps to each other. Again, very active crew, lots of things going on here. I think the biggest thing that I wanted to point out that I really would love families to know, again, make sure that you're checking out those parent guides that we have linked in on the VSB website, because it will really give you a lot more details about many of the different things that are going on with these apps. But two of the big things that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, kids definitely are available or are aware of this, but the Snap Map, which actually shows real-time location of your child. So they can actually be seen by anybody that they're friends with, whether they actually know them in person or not. And again, we were just talking about Instagram and how, this idea of permanence and that digital footprint, and kids will post things on Snapchat without actually really thinking about, they think, oh, it's going to disappear, I don't have to worry about it, when in fact it actually, it's on their servers. You can actually go into settings and you can request the entire log of everything that you've ever done on Snapchat, and stuff that you think has disappeared will show up there. So Jeff, thoughts on that? Anything to add? You had some experience with that?
Yeah, Snapchat with my own kids as well. It causes a lot of anxiety. Um, so a couple of things. First, we throttle the amount of bandwidth that's allowed for any of these social media platforms, so that lots of sorry, I lost my train of thought. The school won't feel any impact from kids trying to use this, and kids will have such a poor experience in the digital world. They'll eventually go away. I really was concerned with the location though, and so I would really like parents to inform themselves about how to turn on and turn off location services, whether it's in Snapchat or others. If you look even in the little icon that we posted, where there's a whole bunch of kids all together, that could be your house on a weekend when you're not there as a parent. And kids all see this, and then they will, of course, come over to join the party as uninvited guests. Just having somebody track my location doesn't sit well with me. And so that's a conversation worth having with your kids.
Yeah.
That's how we look at Discord.
The other one that we really want to talk about, that is, it is the less used out of all of the apps. However, it is growing exponentially, and you can see that user, the amount of time that the average user uses on there. It's 2.5 hours, and the reason why this is because this is actually an app that a lot of kids use for streaming video games and connecting. But the big sort of things that as families and as parents that we should think about in part of those conversations, which we'll get into shortly, is the fact that chat spaces like Discord or Telegram or Reddit, these are spaces where there's a lot of toxic online things that are happening, big conversations that are going on that kids, whether they like it or not, might get pulled into. So again, really, really engage in these conversations with this stuff, but also part of those conversations that that you can help navigate with your kids to make sure that they're actually keeping safe online. Jeff, any thoughts on Discord?
Yeah,
You do any streaming? Any streaming video games?
Do I? In fact, I tried, but I do not.
Okay.
I really have seen it emerge as online gamers, where inside the game, they really restrict what you can say and how you can interact with it based on their terms of engagement. Is that the right word? And so what gamers have turned to is they host their chat and their audio feed on Discord. And so it separates the two things and they run them parallel side by side. Discord was written so that it hardly impacts gameplay at all. That's why it's got such a long usage per hour, because it's actually how long are kids gaming? And that's longer than they're on TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah. So
all this time spent online.
It's a lot. There's a lot of things that are kind of at play. And these are big things that we as educators, but also as parents, have to really, really think about. So again, the key sort of social media issues that we need to be working on as educators, but also as parents, are looking at how these tools impact our child's mental health. We need to look at things like cyberbullying, as well as privacy and security. So, and then addiction and screen time. So like that endless scrolling, as well as that exposure to inappropriate content online. So with that, some strategies that you can engage in opening up those conversations. I think this is such a foreign world to many of us. And so bringing in kids as a part of that conversation and being involved in their digital lives, you can do activities like co-viewing. So one of the things that I do, actually, it's really entertaining. I'll sit down with my daughter. My daughter is 15 years old, and we'll just look through her TikTok feed. And, and it's interesting because we'll have some conversations, but it also gives me a bit of a sense of that algorithm. What's the content that's being fed to her? Because that co-viewing allows for those critical discussions to be able to sit down and say, oh, I don't know, that one kind of makes me feel uncomfortable as a parent or as a person in this world. Let's talk about these things. So you get a sense of that. Also co-creation. So this is a way that you can actually get in there and be a part of that experience with kids, which is super fun. My daughter drags me into making TikTok videos all the time. Teaching high school for the past 5 years, the kids in the yearbook team would always pull me in and be like, do a TikTok, Miss Walker. So it was so much fun. But through that process, I really learned about how these social media platforms work and how important they are in kids' lives. So, again, back to that critical discussion, talk to your kids, see what they're doing, have those conversations around these things, because there's so much that's happening in their lives. And it's really important to be a part of that. The other thing is role playing. Our kids are going to be exposed to an incredible amount of content, both good and bad in their entire lives, whether it's when they're younger or as they're older. And so if you take the chance to actually role play how you want them to work through some of the issues, right? So, for example, they see someone online, they themselves are, being bullied, or they see someone else being bullied, how would you like them to respond to that? How would you like to engage in those conversations, opening up that safe space so that your kids can come to you and talk to you, or find another safe adult that they can actually come and talk to? So really think about this stuff. Shall we dive into some generative AI there, Jeff?
Yeah, just a comment. I had forgotten how much time I spent with my kids, like joining Clash of Clans, not because I liked it, but because I just wanted to be part of it, to understand
Yeah,
what's going on in their world,
yeah, yeah.
or even attempting a TikTok
I'm
now and
thinking,
again. Although if my
yeah,
daughter's
right.
watching, she's probably laughing because she knows that I hated doing that part.
I
Okay.
can't imagine you making TikToks. I love that, actually. I watched my son play Fortnite sometimes, and I was like, okay, oh, this is what you like. Oh, okay. You know that shooting is not okay. And he was just like, yeah, I know that. Okay, move on. All right,
Yeah.
moving on to Gen AI.
Okay, generative AI. Let's just do just a little history of this. So we're going to talk about what generative AI is. It generates text, pictures, audio, video, and a quote that always has sat with me over the last couple of years. This is the dumbest it will ever be. And every time they release a new version of AI, I am blown away by much how much more powerful it is every iteration. It's unbelievable. Artificial intelligence, though, has been involved with machine learning and solving problems for us since the 1950s. Examples are like pattern recognition while searching the stars, finding the most efficient delivery pathways for Amazon drivers, protein folding in the medical industry. And even many of you watching this have had this, predicting the next word in your text. So it is watching what you type and the words that you use, and when you type it in, it is predicting and feeding you, and often it's correct. And now, what generative AI is, it's the ability to look at vast repositories of information and then training the AI to be really good at creating something new. In general, it looks like this. You put a prompt into the AI and it looks just like a chat box. It will process the data based on the algorithms and the training model, and then it will give you an output. So you can say, hey, please create a picture for me. Please create a video. I use it to create PowerPoints. I use it for many different things. But this is what I use it for work. What are kids using it for, Christina? And what should we be teaching about this in school? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how I refer to it and how people are referring to it is Gen AI literacy. So we were talking about digital literacy and defining that. And, Gen AI literacy is, again, kids' understanding of what that is. So what that looks like, there are three sort of key sort of spaces where that exists. So future readiness, right? So are we getting our kids ready for the world that they're going into? I think the best example that I can give is, when I was a teenager, many years ago, did I ever think that anybody could be making digital little videos of themselves doing, TikTok dances and making millions of dollars? No. In fact, I remember having conversations and thinking about, wonder if I could actually have my phone have a video in it one day, right? So again, we are thinking about a world digitally that our kids that we can't even fathom that they're going to grow up in. So we need to think about what we are preparing them for in the future. Also, generative AI literacy is also developing those critical thinking skills so that they can be using this as a tool in their learning, in their life, but not necessarily just having this over reliance on it. And the other thing too is the ethics piece. Gen AI, there's a lot of different things in terms of, the responsible use and data privacy and all that, as well as the environmental implications. We have to have these conversations with kids so that they are going into the future prepared with all these really, really important critical skills.
So how are kids using Gen AI? Well, we know that many students have signed up for ChatGPT when it came out a couple of years ago. Gemini is Google's response to that. Copilot is Microsoft. We're looking at that for kids in our district, but it's not available for them yet. It's still 18 plus. But students are experimenting, having fun with it. But what will the near future hold? Well, we're looking to homework tutors is something that I see students are already experimenting with, but we're hoping that it's going to become a bit more formalized. Students also use it for ideation. So they're nervous about being called out for cheating, but I think it's a great idea to get started on stuff, just to get some ideas going. How many times have I sat with a blank email waiting to type something in, or a blank Word document, and I just don't have ideas? So it gets the ideas going. I love that. And translation is amazing. Some of you may even be translating this session that we're having. It's available in other languages. You can just click on the More button, and you would be able to see in different languages live. So that's crazy cool.
I know you mentioned this one already before, but yeah.
I did. I should reiterate this because with
it's important.
Copilot, which is a Microsoft product, we are a Microsoft district. Copilot is built on the base of ChatGPT. It's a partnership with OpenAI, but it is not yet approved for under 18. There's private previews happening to set up guardrails and keep kids safe, but currently we do not have this in place. So this will be the only VSB supported Gen AI tool, currently 18 plus, but we're working with Microsoft to bring it to a student version of Copilot to VSB. So currently employees have access to it, teachers and other employees, but students do not.
Mm-hmm. So, and that kind of brings me to just an exploration of some of the risks and safeguards that need to be around generative AI. So, kids learning these things, and as parents, educators, for us to think about are, three key sort of areas. I mean, there's many other things to think about, but things like deep fakes and the use of this technology in a way that, creates images or videos through artificial intelligence, but it's really hard to tell the difference, right? So really thinking about some of that and how that affects our kids in the digital space. The next one, which kind of speaks to what you were just talking about, Jeff, in terms of, one of the big concerns that a lot of educators have and a lot of parents have is the worry about the use of AI and it as a form of plagiarism, or that kids are just leaning too hard into actually using this and they're kind of like offloading that learning experience, right? So we have to think about, you can't be using these tools to just do your work for you. You have to really be critically engaging with these tools, and they are exactly that. They are tools to help. They're not something that does the work for you. And then the last one is that data privacy. So keeping our information safe. You sign up for an account. what information is being collected about you, the information you're putting in, do you own that? Does this tool own it? So thinking about that, which brings me to some generative AI engagement strategies so that you as family members can actually be connected with your kids in learning this. So again, we go back to that co-creation. Sit down with your children and make something, have an account set up, make sure that it's one that you're comfortable with in terms of privacy, but sit down and co-create something. Sit down at ChatGPT and write a funny poem or play with it so that you yourself learn, or have your kids teach you how these tools work so you understand, so you can support them. Another fun one, actually, Jiana, we have a link that you can actually pop into the chat for families. Play a game of spot the fake. There's so much that's out there online in terms of generative AI images and videos. So take the time to look through some of these spot the fake activities and go through them with your kids and look at the details so that you yourself can learn, but also that your kids can learn. And the next one is those critical discussions. So sitting down and talking, oh, okay, you're working on this project, you want to use this. Okay, well, why are you using this particular tool for this? Why are you, should you be actually writing your whole entire project with it? Or how about we work together and play around with that? And then again, that role playing, having those conversations, having those moments where you can think about, the consequences of ethical choices, right? So if you create a whole project, you do a whole assignment using AI and you submit it to your teacher, and your teacher finds out, what's the implications? What are the repercussions of that? So helping kind of to support your kids and thinking through the choices that they're making. Jeff.
As we move into the Gen AI world and it starts coming into the classroom when it's approved, more and more teachers are going to be going through these strategies as well. It's actually, the spot the fake is super fun. I highly encourage families to go with that, and creating stuff. Oh man, like it's super funny right now when you ask it to create anything with humans. Sometimes there's like 6 or 7 fingers, or the arm
10
is not
fingers,
right,
yeah.
or the eyes look a little bit off. But let me go back to the quote. This is the dumbest that it's ever going to be. Every iteration in the future is going to get better and better, and it will be hard to spot the fakes.
Yeah.
So this is why we came together tonight. Online safety strategies. We really want you to know that teachers care about students, families care about the future of their kids. We want this digital world to be fun and exciting, but also safe. So there is a website, Canadian Centre for Child Protection. Protect Kids Online is the link, Jiana.
Yeah, that one's a great resource.
And let's have a little look at what their suggested 3-step family plan is.
They have lots of different suggestions. I've kind of broken them down into 3 steps and 3 key areas, but I really, really strongly, again, I cannot stress to you how awesome the resource list that we put together is. But go to that, read through. You're going to find some incredible things to help support you with, any conversation points, any sort of issues that you could potentially be facing online. So the first step that I've kind of brought together is this audit piece. And so I don't mean audit, I don't mean that you go in and you're like checking everything and looking into detail, because really I think sometimes that gives us a false sense of comfort, in terms of this obsessive auditing. But what I mean is, get into those conversations, talk to your kids, have a look through things, understand how they work, plan, make agreements before you actually set up these devices for your kids. Or, if they're already set up and you didn't have these conversations, dig into them, because again, you are the parent, you're the one with the cell phone contract. Kids can't actually have cell phone contracts until they're 18 years old. So you are responsible for that. You're the one that actually can put those parameters, and kids are the ones that are earning that privilege to be able to access that stuff. So again, go in, have a look, see what they're doing, and have those conversations. Yeah, I'm good with this app. That sounds good. No, I'm not okay with this one. Yeah, let's put some parental controls on that one, and just have those conversations. And then Jeff, next one.
Speaking of parental controls,
yeah,
almost all apps, all devices, and even in your house, there are ways that you as a parent can take control of what's going on. iPads and iPhones, I know specifically because I use an iPhone, but it has a parental control section. And you can go in, you can restrict the apps that are used, you can restrict the times that they're allowed to be used, or the times of the day that they're allowed to be used. Same with your home network. You bring internet into your home, and there's a router. You can log into that router and you can turn off internet for the house between midnight and 6 a.m. We know there's a statistic that 80% of kids with a cell phone have the cell phone in their room all night long. And so maybe in your room all night long with internet is not such a great idea. That's a tough conversation for families to have. I've had it before.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not too long ago, our router, we were able to see what our kids are doing and control their internet access. And there were some tough conversations. Have you ever had a conversation with a 17-year-old who's 6'3" staring down at you and you telling them they can't do it? It's not easy, right? So the next part of the step here that I would recommend strongly is schedule monthly tech check-in. So that can just be, if you're the type of family that sits around and has dinner together, you can talk about it then. You can go out and have, take your kid out for a coffee or tea and have those conversations, whatever that looks like for your family. But do those tech check-ins, because, if you're setting up, tech agreements with your kids where they're, agreeing to use things in a very responsible way, then you can come back and say, hey, how's it been going? Any things that, have come up? Just have those conversations, because I really do feel like the foundations for keeping kids safe online and making sure that they're keeping others safe online and that digital sort of safety and responsible use is, the open lines of communication and being a part of that conversation. Online strategies, Jeff, you want to start us off with your first one?
Yeah, there is. I'll just say that email has not gone away and is not going away. Students still need to use email. They use a lot of social media, but to get a job, there is this permanence of email. So phishing and spam is just a fact of life. We have turned off email for K-7 so that elementary students don't get bombarded with phishing and scamming emails. There is a game that you could play with your kids. And again, Gianna, there's a link, fishmeifyoucan.com. It's super fun. See if you can spot the phishing emails.
The other thing is make sure that you're going in, working with your kids, understanding how to set up and change those privacy settings. Learn where that report button is. So in all social media apps, you can actually find a report button. You should know where it is. Your kids should know where it is, because things are going to happen and you're going to want to report it. The other thing that I'm going to recommend is turning off and finding where location services is, because this is one that exists on all social media apps, including even just pictures that you take with geolocation. But figure out how to turn that off and have those conversations about what it is that you're comfortable with or not comfortable with that stuff. All right, Jeff, tell us what's going on at VSB.
It really is about informing yourself as parents and guardians. There was another question, and so I've put together a couple of slides, a little bit more technical. Another pre-submitted question: how do we protect students from potentially harmful online content on school devices? So if you flip to the next slide, we have a lot of things in place. The first level is called content filtering. So we block websites. Let me paraphrase, let me reverse that. The Ministry of Education blocks websites. And so they do this by category. For example, gaming, gambling, illicit drugs and alcohol, among other things. So those are blocked. In fact, it's very aggressive blocking, even to the point that I have to put in requests to have things unblocked. An example of that is chess.com. So a chess club at the school just wanted to play online. And so we can request for things to be unblocked. Now, in addition, we also have software on our networks and on all of our school devices. So whether it's antivirus, we're always monitoring what is going on our network and what is going on our devices, just to encourage educational use. Now, the next slide is about traffic shaping. I don't know if you've heard this word before. I've alluded to it already previous in that we can if there's two things fighting for bandwidth, an educational video for a classroom and a whole bunch of kids trying to use Snapchat, we can lower the priority of Snapchat and elevate the priority of educational uses. It's called traffic shaping. And we do this very aggressively. Social media is at the bottom. We want it to be the poorest experience without completely shutting it off. And this leads into probably the biggest question bank that came in. There was maybe 5 questions, and I'm going to paraphrase them all together. So it was all around what is happening with cell phone restrictions. So cell phones, as we know, they're powerful and amazing. We all have phones. And as a society, but we're coming to a new understanding about young minds and screen time. So one of the questions was, at what age should my kids get a cell phone? But I can't tell you that. I can only answer for my family. Well, what I do say is we're not allowing cell phones for K to 7, and we're restricting cell phone use through high school. Even adults struggle to limit social media, and we fall into the trap of endless scrolling. So talk about this at home with kids and work out your family boundaries. Many of you, I hope, have already done that. So access to information on phones is in the classroom at the teacher discretion. And so we don't 100% block or say there is a cell phone ban. There are a lot of very good uses for phones and accessing information. Christina, you and I, as classroom teachers, there were times where I said, take your phones out, let's use them. This is what we're doing. We teach appropriate use, and then it's time to put them away. Hey, everybody, put your cell phones away. This is also what I would do with my kids at home. My kids at home were never allowed to be like scrolling on their phone while we're having dinner, if we were having dinner together that night in amongst soccer practice.
It's those boundaries, and the kids also learning that self-regulation piece around the use of technology. It's really, really important.
And so the official guidelines from Ministry of Education were for school districts to develop a, what do we call it, in our online, our acceptable use policies, is for K to 7, out of sight and off, even during recess and lunch. But at secondary level, students are allowed to use them outside of class hours and inside of class if teachers want to use them and use them for educational purposes. Here's a quick link. AUP stands for Acceptable Use Policy. This is what your students sign, all the staff sign it, to be digitally responsible.
Okay. So let's break down some of the initiatives that are happening in different areas of what's happening.
We really have 3 areas: the district, the schools, and then the partnership with At Home. So I work with administrators extensively. One of the latest things was all through Gen AI and working with them so that they could then take it to their staff meetings and work with teachers. Each August, we have an administrator learning conference. I also host professional development with administrators, weekly meetings, spotlight emerging tech trends, and I field calls from administrators every day, and we talk through things. We also have an extensive digital resource internally for them to access. What happens at the school? Well, Christina, I know. I'm so happy to have you here. I know that you've had more than 100 classrooms, 68 schools, and 300 teachers or more have been engaging with your presentations just from September. In addition, you have a secret project that you're very interested in with disinformation and misinformation. So I look forward to you bringing that to classrooms.
It's not really a secret project, but we are working really hard to build up this opportunity to really build a lot of learning for teachers and then eventually for students around misinformation and disinformation and that critical thinking online. School initiatives. There are so much that's happening on the school level. You know, the VSB, we have some incredible educators, you know, working district positions as well as in the schools. There's so many wonderful people, and they're bringing all these different learning opportunities for kids into our schools. So for example, our SEL district department has organized, there's in-person presentations that are happening for kids in terms of online safety. If your kids haven't mentioned that they've seen it yet, ask them about that. There's lots of classroom curriculum that teachers are implementing or learning about, and I'm providing lots of resources for teachers to be able to access this learning. And then there's also workshops that are happening. So Jeff had mentioned, thank you very much, Jeff, around all the stuff that I've been doing in terms of running workshops to help teachers learn about the use of generative AI or inclusive technology or, animatronics or all these different things that we've got going on. So there's a lot of really powerhouse things that are happening in our districts, on the school level. And then students.
As I mentioned before with students, we're very cautious with students with passwords and email. And so elementary students have restricted email access inbound and outbound. And there's this word, password hygiene. So we try to teach students how to develop good passwords and to maintain those passwords. So we require students to change their password every year. And as well, for parents, if you're like trying to teach your kids how to do good passwords, the current practice is not like the crazy symbols all over the place. It is a longer password is better. So how would you do that? Generally, what we do is we say use 2 words or 3 words, depending on the age of the student. We would say something like Apple with a period, apple.computer, and that's their password. Or big.red.apple, and it makes a longer password, more complex, harder to hack. If we see any suspicious activity on accounts, we lock that account immediately. Student accounts are not allowed to be accessed from outside the country. Families traveling will have to approach the administrator, and they can have that unlocked for the family during your vacation or extended away from Canada times. Homeschool collaboration, very important. Christina has said this so often already. Be involved in your kids' digital lives, please. Sit with them, engage with them. Don't turn away from it. So if you could use a shared language, what is digital footprint? And talk about that at home. The teachers are talking about that at school. Just as a last thing, some of our trusted platforms, I'll throw this in. We use MyEdBC. Many of you have seen this. We use it for attendance and formal reporting. We also use Teams and Spaces EDU. So if you see those programs, those are school authorized programs.
And then parent resources, which I am now going to get into. So we have updated and included some really, really powerhouse resources. The URL is right there, and I've got a QR code if you want to scan that with your phone. I'm going to actually skip to the next slide, which still has the QR code and the URL. This is what it looks like. There are some key resources, there's some definition, there's some drop-down menus that can lead you to resources in very specific areas that you can dig into so that you can continue this learning on your own. So that wraps everything up. Jiana, can I pass it back to you?
Of course, thank you, Christina, and thank you, Jeff,
Awesome.
for those great insights. I know as a parent myself, I've definitely learned quite a bit, and even though my child is still in elementary school, I think it's good to be proactive and to prepare this, especially as they head into secondary school. So we have some questions that were pre-submitted and some questions that were asked during the presentation. I'm just going to go straight into it. There were a lot of questions about cell phone bans and can we be more strict? So, Jeff and Christina, what are the tools that we are using to help teachers manage this? What about has a district looked into phone lock boxes? You know, we have certain apps that are blocked. You talked about how certain websites are blocked and certain, like TikTok is blocked. What else is the district doing?
So we look at phones as an educational tool and secondary as a distraction. So if we look back over like the last 5 or 10 years, many teachers already had restrictions in place. They were managing their classroom. But last summer, I believe it was July 1st, the ministry put out a British Columbia-wide restriction on cell phones, and not just encouraged, but demanded that all districts have some policies in place. And so we have landed on K-7 is on silent and out of sight for the entire school day. And secondary is on silent and out of sight during class time, but not during lunchtime or recess time for secondary students.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've really we're moving the needle here on being more strict in cell phone restrictions. And we are also acknowledging that it is a tool that we still need in the classroom. Here's a tough question. What age should kids get a cell phone? And I know this is very subjective, but as our expert panelists, I really want to get your opinion on this.
I was just talking to Christina about this before, and I said, how do kids get phones? Because generally, I never bought my kid a brand new phone. I bought myself a new phone and they got my old phone and they had it without a SIM card. And I was able to hold off until high school. And so my kids didn't
Yeah.
have phones before high school. That was the carrot. Okay, you're moving to high school, you're more mature, you're ready for this. Um, I'm just saying students don't need a cell phone at elementary school. So this is my feeling. The school board does not have a policy on telling families what to do in their own lives. Kids don't need phones at school.
I've also just heard from other educators, there's no hard rule to say it's starting on this at this age. It's more about each kid and what they can handle, but the general advice is to start as late as possible.
Yeah, I
What
totally agree
happened
with that,
again?
Jana. Yeah, I think that again, my thoughts on it are, you need to be having those conversations. You also need to think about, have those conversations with your kids and say, are you prepared to, put this away at night, to follow the boundaries that you as a parent have decided need to happen around these things. And that's a tough one. Again, I can't sit there and say like, here's the day, here's the time that you should be doing that. Again, this is something that you need to actually think about and what you're able to, because the minute you open that door too, as a parent, it's hard to close that door. And you will find, especially as they become teenagers, you're going to have those arguments that are going to be happening. So think about what you're also prepared for as a parent.
So on the
One thing
flip
that helped me with that was we got together as a group of parents, the parents of the friends group that my son
Yeah.
had and that my daughter had, and we kind of agreed on the same time. We all dove in together. That may make it more palatable.
Right, that peer influence.
Hmm.
On the
Community,
flip side,
community.
Yeah.
when they do have a cell phone, what advice do you have about cyberbullying?
That's a big one.
Wow, what advice. If I could say one thing about cell phones, uh, they don't go into your room at night. They get charged. We would set up like a charge station, and everybody's phones were all in the same spot in the kitchen because we know stuff gets posted and texted and engaged through the night when phones are in rooms.
That's a great tip.
Yeah,
Um,
I think, can I just add a little bit to that?
yes.
I know that I had mentioned, in those strategies for engagement with social media and that role playing and talking to your kids about, playing out, what the situation looks like if you are, pardon me, while my headphone falls out, if something were to happen. So if they see something or they're experiencing something, how would you as a parent like them to respond? Who do you want them to talk to? Who do you feel that they should go to? And the big thing is around those trusted adults that exist, whether it's at school or whether it's at home, to get those specific supports around things. I think that's really, really important. And on top of that, that digital literacy. So, as educators, we're working with kids to really help them learn how to be digitally responsible kids and having those deep critical conversations with kids so that they are also behaving in a way that is, kind and responsible.
Yeah, and that's why we're teaching about digital literacy. That's why we're,
That's it.
it's
Yep.
not just at school, it's also at home. I'm seeing
Yep.
comments about kids feeling peer pressured because their other friends are getting it. So that's a great tip to try and rally with other parents and kind of make a pact.
Mm-hmm.
A question about digital literacy for special needs. I saw some of that pop up in the chats. So,
Mm-hmm.
how is the district managing that, or are we doing something different for in teaching digital literacy to students with special needs?
Can I just mention something that I actually was working with another district teacher colleague recently? We've been running a workshop for educators that is inclusive technology. So we've been really working hard to try and find ways that technology that we have access to through the VSB is available for teachers to be able to support kids. So I can speak to that side of things in terms of, the amazing things, the technology has grown so exponentially that there's a lot of things that are available, for example, closed captioning, like what many people are experiencing right here on Teams, to make that available and accessible for kids. And then different resources for being able to translate or read or anything along those lines. So we're hosting workshops like that. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to add your 2 cents about that?
No, that's totally outside my realm of experience, other than when all of our learning services people come and ask questions. I'm usually more answering on the technology side as opposed to the age of readiness to engage in different pieces of this. I really rely on them and their expertise.
What I do know at the district, we are very much a collaborative team, and we always involve educators who work more closely with students with special needs, the directors of instructions over there. And like Christina was saying, it is actually a tool that we rely heavily on for kids to use to aid them as a tool. So it's not something that we are banning where, they shouldn't be using it, because we see it as something that can help them and flourish as a student, but we're definitely keeping a close eye on that. Here's an interesting question we received earlier on. What are the legal implications of teens showing their body parts online?
Oh man.
That
I'm
is
just here to
also a
ask a
big.
tough
You are
question.
you're hitting us with all the big questions. Can I
So
can I just
you
can
go
I
ahead first, and then I'll follow
okay.
up as the administrator.
So this is such a huge question. And again, like as a parent, as an educator, I've worked with teenagers for a really long time. It can be really scary. Like online spaces can be really scary, and the potential of different things happening. And I would like to really direct families who want some guidance around this to the parent resources that we put together, because there's a whole section on online exploitation where you can actually find some reporting tools, where there's the conversation, there's a whole like sexting agreement that parents can sit down and talk to their kids about this stuff. But also I really want to encourage kids to, it's that connection with trusted adults. Like we have some really phenomenal people like counselors that are available on site, who are there to help with the potential for online abuse or anything that kids are actually dealing with. So making sure that kids know that they can go to their school counselor and check in. They can talk to their admin, they can talk to trusted adults and teachers who are going to help guide them and bring them in connection with people who can really, really help out. Jeff, what are your thoughts? What have you got to say?
I guess firstly, in my experience, I'd like to dispel the myth that it's like the bad boy pressuring the girl, because we have a wide variety of circumstances, and it seems like everyone is at fault and everyone is complicit as we start to tease out the scenarios that come out. Every scenario has been different, and I'm not a lawyer, and so I can't give like legal counsel on what the rules are. But of course, we treat it very seriously. And as soon as something comes up, we start to involve the police.
Yes, absolutely.
This is outside the school.
Yeah, I think definitely it's something that we all need to teach our kids, and this is part of digital literacy, to know what is acceptable, what is not, when should you alert an adult, either be it your family member or a teacher. We have time for one more question. This is more of a technical question, which is, can a student hotspot their phone to a school device to bypass the school filters that you mentioned earlier?
Oh, Jeff, that's all
Yes,
you.
that's an easy answer. Yes, if they're
Yes, they
technically
can.
savvy, no matter what we put in place, they are able to get around. So we put extensive restrictions on our network and on our devices, but there are always ways to get around whatever. And you only need to be like moderately technical. And this is a worldwide thing. It's not even really that complicated. We do our best. I would like if students didn't have data. Then when they come in, they rely on how we restrict. But as soon as they have data on their phone, now they can go out. Although there are some dead spots in our schools that don't really allow for data to be used. But in general, yeah, they could join other networks. And if they create their own network, away they go.
Kids can be really creative.
This really
Yeah.
comes down to what I've argued all the time. It's really about the teacher in the classroom and supervision. This doesn't have to do as much with technology. I always made sure my classrooms, when students are using laptops, I make sure the laptop is facing where I can see it. I'm not just sitting as a teacher. I am active supervision. I am moving around all the time. I have a pretty good idea of what's going on in my classroom.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, also we can only restrict so much. We are still trying to raise students who can critically think and know what's
Yes.
right and what's
Yep.
wrong to do, right? Because
Yep.
we're setting them up for success to go into the real world and to be an adult. So
Mhm.
there are guidelines that we can provide, but there's also so much that we can do, and we have to let them flourish as a human being.
I believe what you're saying, Gianna, is they need digital literacy. I believe that's what you're
Just a little
saying, my
bit, yeah.
friend.
Yeah. Christina, we provided a lot of great resources. Is there a link that
Yeah.
you can drop into the chat, into the Q&A section? So there's a link online, and just put that in there so the parents can see. I'm going to
Mhm.
wrap up our session for today, and thank you to our panelists, Jeff and Christina, for sharing your expertise, and thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope you learned as much as I did. This session will be recorded, so if you missed anything, don't worry, you can revisit. I'm going to drop the link right now. This is an extension of our podcast, After the Bell. All the episodes are available on this website, and you can find this recording there as well. And lastly, please follow us on our social media at VSB39 on Instagram to stay tuned for details about our next After the Bell session. We really try hard to plan around what do parents actually want? What do families need to know? So we look forward to seeing you again at the next session. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.